right, welcome back to Parsha. This is a very interesting Parsha. It's a very, not a controversial Parsha, but it's a Parsha.
It's about Shlach.
Shlach, yes. Shlach, yes. For those of you who are in wood making, this is your Parsha. The Torah has something for everybody. Carpenter. So what's wrong? Am I not inside the video?
No, you're okay.
All right. Maybe is it videoing you instead?
No, I just didn't know that you had turned it on.
Ah, okay. All right. So this parsha is one of the parshas. Certain parshas you read in the Torah and you read okay, nice story, whatever, it doesn't bother you. But there's certain parshas that you read it and it really bothers you. Like how could they be so stupid? Like the golden calf parsha, right? Like how could it be? This is one of the parshas in the Torah that you must read with Hasidic interpretation. You can't just read the story. If you're just reading the story and the story doesn't bother you, then you're not paying attention. So the story is that the Jewish people approach Moshe, say we want to go and check out the land of Israel. And Moshe's like, I don't know. I don't think that's a good idea. Why? God already promised that He's going to bring him to the land, number one. Number two, He promised them it's a land of flowing milk and honey. It's a good land, everything is good. So what are you going to check out? Right? If God handed you a wad of bills and says it's all there, you're gonna check, you're gonna count?
We're going to count it.
Of course not. You're gonna count, right? Remember one time I was one of the kids, I guess, were getting older, whatever. I was selling one of the baby stuff on Craigslist. The guy comes to the house, hands me like it's $30, $25, whatever it was, and hands me a thing of bills. I thought to myself, I'm not going to be disrespectful and count out the cash in front of him. I didn't count, and it was like a 5 and 3 ones, whatever it was. So sometimes, right? Like I said, in God you trust, that no one else. But if God tells you the land of Israel is good, what are you going to do? So Moshe is going back and forth. Finally, he says, "All right," and he picks out 12 guys. Now you have to assume, and this is what the class is really going to focus on, that Moshe didn't pick any 12 shlomazels. He didn't pick up 12 guys who were sitting there in the corner of the liquor store and weren't working anyway. Come, let me give you a job, right? You know, I remember it was a big controversy in the 90s. I think it was Giuliani who said, there's no such thing as you don't work. You get welfare, right? Welfare is when the government gives you money, right? You get welfare, you'll go clean up the sides of the highway. If you can move, you can work, right? And people, how can you do such a thing? It was a big controversy. So Moshe didn't get, some bums sitting there, in Times Square. He had these guys who do the tricks, right? These guys were real people. Then, not so long later, just 40 days later, they come back and say, guys, can't be done. Can't be done. Impossible. He says, we're wasting our time. Might as well stay here. Stay here or go back to Egypt. Now this is where the insanity is. What do you mean it can't be done? God promised you it could be done. The same. It's not like if I came to you and said, God said, let's all go settle the Sahara, right? You say, listen, that sounds pretty impossible, right? And how do I know God said? I spoke to you, right? But let's say God, you ate the food that God gave you in the morning, and you drank the water that God gave you that day, and you're surrounded by clouds. And God told you everything's going to be okay. I mean, it's not an abstract belief like we think we have in God. There's two types of belief, right? There's concrete belief, reasonable belief. Like I believe, how do you know the sun's going to come up in the east tomorrow?
You did it yesterday,
right?
And the day before.
Right. Do you know for a fact? I mean, based on the performance, we're pretty sure, right? Fact is only once it happened, right? But there's reasonable belief that you think it's going to, right? And then there's things that are harder to believe, right? If I told you, I went golfing and I got a hole in one, you're thinking, but Rabbi, you don't play golf. Or you play golf once every 10 years, so come on, is it possible? Yeah. Is it plausible? You're not Tiger Woods, right?
I got a hole in one when I was 15 years old.
In mini golf?
No, on a par 3 course.
I mean, do we believe it? All right. Well, we'll choose to believe.
Well, everybody who saw it, they're all passed away.
So you see, there you go. Very, very convenient. Right, there you go. So So we're not talking about they came back and they said God promised us He's going to bring us into a country. You have to realize that the land of Canaan was a settled land and very fortified. So let's say, for example, God came to the Jewish people and said, "We're going to take over Spain," right? And you're thinking, well, Spain's a pretty settled and proper country. I don't. I'm throwing out Spain loves Jews right now. You see that anti-Semitism going on in Spain? It's terrible.
Well,
And-
they could always take France.
France is not good at fighting, right? Well, or Germany, whatever it is, right?
Italy.
Whatever. If I told you today, and you would say, well, you would say, I don't know. First of all, how's that going to happen? Number two, how do I know God spoke to you? But let's say you were ready for a year and a half. God was taking care of you, right? And try to imagine to the extent that the Jewish people were dependent on God. It was absolute. I mean, we're all dependent on God, but it was openly. It wasn't, that's what I'm trying to say. The belief wasn't abstract, it was concrete. The bread they ate was miraculous bread. The water came out of a rock. They were in the desert. They were surrounded by clouds of glory. They never did laundry. The clothing grew with them. So when God says he can help you take over Spain, Italy, France, whatever it is, right? What don't you believe? This is where the insanity plea comes in. And if 10 guys go crazy, fine, there's always a Meshugana. But everybody goes crazy. It's one of the things that some of the Germans try to say after the war. No, it was a temporary insanity, right? It's not really us, right? But here you're talking about 600,000 men. The woman, by the way, the woman never got caught up in this mishigas. In all the stories of the Torah where the Jewish people complain and do all these crazy things, it's only the men. Women never had this issue. Now you know why there's a shidduch imbalance in the Jewish people, because the men kept dying in the desert and the Jewish people didn't. So by the time 40 years later, it's God's fault. Anyway, so they say we want to stay in the desert, and God says, I can't deal with them anymore. I'm done. And the decree comes to stay in the desert for 40 years. And then the Jewish people complain again, and then at the end, the Parsha ends off with the mitzvah of tzitzis. That's the story of the Parsha. So we're going to focus on the story of the spies. Okay. Now let's go back to the beginning. Here, let's look at the text here. Okay, the question we'll go back. Right. Moshe chooses one guy from every tribe. 12 tribes, 12 guys. Now, looking at text number 1, the focus on the words at the beginning of the second verse. Text number 1, what is it, page 170? They were all men. Or do you think the people were gender confused? That they had gender dysphoria? They didn't know? This is maybe very appropriate because June is, So what does it mean they were all men? So Rashi, the great commentator, text 1b, says they're all men, not telling you the gender. Telling you they're all upstanding men. They're good guys. So, which makes sense. If you're going to send somebody on a very important mission, they're going to come back and go to the land of Canaan. And their job is to tell everybody, right, guys, it's amazing, right? So you want to make sure they do the job properly. Who's Moshe going to choose? Moshe is going to choose good guys. And the Torah testified that Moshe chooses good guys. So let's go back. Let's go back to the question for discussion. So the question is, when do good people start to go sour? Is it a moment of sudden collapse, or the result of a small or unnoticed change? Is it slowly, or is it one drastic step? How often does it is it like one person says, "That's it, I'm not being religious anymore," or is it a gradual, descent into? This is what we're going to focus on today. So the Jewish people, the men that Moshe chose were good people, right? As you see on the screen. Now, you might say, yeah, there were good people on the outside. On the inside, maybe we weren't so good. or Moshe thought they were good, and Moshe thought the whole time that they were going to do their job. But we see something very interesting right in the beginning of the parsha. What was Joshua's original name?
Joshua?
Original name.
Oh, I don't know.
Look here. His name was actually Hoshea. His name was actually the Jewish version of Jose. And Moshe changed his name from Hoshea to Yehoshua. Why did he do that? So Rashi says, because Moshe was worried about the council of the spies. And he added the Yud, so he should have a Yud and a Hey, God's name, that God should protect him from the council of the spies. Whoa. So nothing makes sense over here. First we're saying that Moshe chose these guys because they were good. But if Moshe knew they were bad, or obviously he knew they were bad because he prayed for Yehoshua, right? So why did Moshe send them? So did Moshe know or he didn't know?
Is
Right.
this the same Hosea we read about?
No.
It's just the same name.
Same name. Yeah. So how could it? Nothing makes sense. Who's Moshe praying for? One verse says they were good guys. Kulam anashim, all men of good stature. Next verse said, and a few verses later, Moshe prays. That means obviously something already started to go wrong. In between verse 1, right? Is verse 1 in the Parshat? I mean, I know it's the first verse. Yeah, sorry, it's verse 3. In between verse 3, which is text 1a, and then if you look at text 1a, it's verse 3, 13:13. And then text 2a is 13:16. In between those 13 verses, something changes, right? Because in verse 3, they're good guys. In verse 13, Moshe's worried. Moshe senses something is off. Now let's double down, and we're going to show that they were corrupt from the beginning. What happens? Look at text 3a. Text 3a is from verse 26. This is after the spies, they traveled the land of Israel for 40 days, which Rashi explains that itself was miraculous because it takes more than 40 days to walk the entire land of Israel. Right? So God gave them a little bit of express lane. They didn't get a speeding ticket, which I can use that card.
Like my son.
Yeah. So I guess there were no speeding cameras back then. And it says
They got speeding cameras all over the place.
in New York, but not in Israel. Well, actually, not in Israel. So it says, the verse says, they went and they came. What do you mean they went and they came? We know they went already. This is verse 26. We know that Moshe sent them. We know they were in the land of Israel. We know they took fruit. They carried it back on what do you call those poles? But there's a word for it.
Staff.
No, but when you're carrying something on a, anyway,
One of them things.
yeah, I think there's a word for it.
I thought that was the second set of spies.
No,
Not
second
the first.
set of spies didn't carry anything.
They didn't bring anything back.
No. So Rashi picks up on that extra word, and they went. We know they went. The verse should have just said, and they arrived, right? There's people, guys will understand this, right? Your wife is telling you a story, your daughter's telling you a story, and giving you too many details. Just give me the story. I don't need. So we went, then we came, and Jackie Mason. We went, then we came. When we walked, then we went. Just tell me what happened.
Facts, man.
Yeah, thank you. Just the facts. So nothing in the Torah is extra. So what's that word? And they went. So Rashi says something incredible. Look at text 3b. He says, why does the Torah say they went and they came in the same verse? To tell you that the departure was similar to their arrival. So we many times think that they got corrupt. When they left, they were good, and something happened on the way, and they got corrupted on the way, and they came back, or something they saw. But here the Torah is telling you, Rashi says, the Torah is telling you, no, even before they saw anything bad. You might argue they came to the land of Israel, and they saw something that showed them, these people are much stronger than the Egyptians. maybe God can conquer the Egyptians, which is one of the things, by the way, they told the Jewish people. God can conquer the Egyptians. God can conquer, 31 kings. But here, it's telling you no. This is something that they were corrupt from the beginning. So now the question gets even stronger. So what happened? Now, if you see, let's go back over here. I'm going to go back to the text. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back to text 1a for a second on the screen. Okay, if you look on the screen over here, it says they were all men, right? Good guys. So text in verse 3, they're all good guys, right? See? Now, in text 16, right, we see Moshe is praying for them. And he, look at that, check out that word over there. Rashi says, the council of the spies. This is the first time they're called spies. In the beginning, they're not called spies. And they're not called wicked over here. Moshe just prays that Yeshua should be saved from the council of the spies. Then you go later to verse, what is the verse of that? 26. And Rashi says, the evil, wicked council. So we have here 3 stages. Number 1, they start out all good. Number 2, they're the council of the spies. And then step 3 is the wicked council. Now, I want to direct your attention to, let's go back again, to verse 1a. Verse 1a, back, I know we're jumping pages here. Verse 1a, no, sorry, did not work. Verse 1a, is it? Sorry, guys. No, here we go. It says, this is, sorry, not verse 1, text 2a, verse 16. What verb is the Torah using in verse 16? This is text 2a. What's the verb there? These are the men that Moshe sent to scout the land. What are they called in Rashi? The council of spies. Is there a difference between a scout and a spy?
Yeah, it's a
Context.
very thin difference.
Yeah, but it's context.
It's in context.
Is it?
Yeah.
It's also the depth to which they are acquiring intelligence.
That's true, and how they're acquiring the intelligence.
Yes, a spy is going in depth to get tactical information.
So the Rebbe is saying what the Larry is saying. The Rebbe says that the words aren't just interchangeable in the Torah. There's a big difference between a scout and a spy. Let's go back a second. What was Moshe hoping to accomplish when he sent them?
To convince them that what he said to them, that God told Moshe, that everything's going to be okay. You're going to be able to take it over.
So, was Moshe asking them to bring back tactical advice?
No.
How to conquer the land?
No, I think
Well-
he wanted them just to see the land and say, hey, yeah, this is there. And
So, in other words, to confirm what's there.
Yeah.
Like a scout would look and see the fruit trees and see the water and see the animals.
What's the job of a scout? So the army sends ahead a scout to view. We're coming up on the anniversary of Gettysburg, right?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the big stories of Gettysburg is who got the high ground first. It's one of the
Pickett.
saying Pickett. No, Pickett is from this. Pickett's from this is from the
Oh,
Confederacy.
Pickett charged from the valley up the hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's saying why, and how do they do it? They sent the scout. I think it was cavalry. The job of a scout, the scout wears his uniform. The scout is always identified with whatever side he's on. His job is just to bring back information. I went there, observe, and bring back. His job is not to weigh in personally on what he feels. His job is to tell you there's 10,000 of this. There's, like Moshe said, just tell me how many cities. Just tell me the city's walled. Just give me information. A spy, on the other hand, a spy is a two-faced person. On the outside, he seems like one thing. On the inside is something else. On the outside, he's your friend. On the inside, he's something else. Where's another example? We have spies in the Torah. In the 5 books of Moshe. There are 2 other examples, but one is more famous. You should know this. Where someone's accused of being a spy. Okay, a group of people accused of being a spy. Come on, guys. I'll give you a hint. Another hint.
Yeah.
When Joseph's brothers all come
So this is what you see here.
to see him.
So you see here. So you see in text 4. In text 4, Yosef accuses his brothers they're spies. It says they came in all innocent, and Yosef says, you're not innocent. You're spies. And the Rebbe points out, that's the difference between a scout and a spy. Moshe sent them to scout. Just go and bring back information. You see text number 5. This Ursula Wilder, I'm not sure what... She wrote a book. So anytime you write a book, you automatically you're an authority.
Ursula Gwynn wrote a lot of books too.
I mean, it could be. I'm not idea. The truth is, it could be.
John Grisham. He's still alive.
People who commit espionage sustain double lives. He or she initiates a clandestine second identity. From that time on, separation must be maintained between the personal secret spy identity with clandestine activities and the non-spy public self. The covert activities inescapably exert a powerful influence on the person's overt life. They necessitate ongoing efforts at concealment, compartmentalization, deception of those not witting of the espionage, which includes almost everyone in the spy's life. So a spy's job it involves fooling people, deceiving people, lack of honesty. So it says, and this is what the brothers tell the brothers. The brothers tell Yosef, so you're accusing us of being dishonest. He's telling them, no, what you see is what you get. Look at text 6. He says, no, we're not spies. We came here to buy food. And now you go back to text 2 of our Parsha, back in the book of Numbers. So it says, Shlach lecha nashim. Hashem tells Moshe, send forth for yourself, and they shall scout the land. Like you see, text number 8, the Sefer Shirashim. Shirashim talks about the the meaning of the words. So the meaning of scouting is to investigate and to search. So now what was it says. You think God needed your information to find out how to conquer the land? And even if it was miraculous, let's say God came to Israel and said, I want you to overtake the United States. It's impossible. But if God said to do it, right? It comes to the possibility. The old Jewish joke, this old Israeli joke. The Israeli economy was in a tank.
Yep.
Right, the Israeli economy was in a tank, and they have a meeting in Knesset, and they said, I have an idea. Let's declare war on the United States. So why? It says everybody knows that after World War II, the United States rebuilt Europe. Right? Look how well they're doing. So let's declare war on the United States, and they'll build up our economy. So one guy in the Knesset says, yeah, but what if we win?
old.
Yeah, I told
story.
you. I think. I think it's not if. What happens when we win? I think they all right.
Well, you heard about the two tanks that backed up a hill, opposite sides of a hill, Egyptian and Israeli.
Yeah.
They bump into each other. The guys come out of the Egyptian tank and say, I surrender. The Israeli come out and they say, whiplash.
Yeah. I know a good lawyer. So if you look at text number 9, it says Meir Leish Weiser, 19th century rabbi. He says there was no need to send spies to uncover the land's vulnerabilities. He says only because the Jewish people, this is the part that really needs Chassidus to explain. Shockingly, like they always needed confirmation. They always needed, to go off the subject a little bit. One of the the things that the commentary debate, or not debate, sorry, discuss is the right word. We see Hashem so many times in the Torah tells us you can't have an image, a graven image, an idol. Yet in the Holy of Holies, we have a box, and on top of the box
Cherubim.
are two images, right? I don't know whatever you want to call them, but they're two golden, and it's the only place in the temple you're allowed to have that, by the way. Torah warns us it's only two. You can't make them out of gold. You can't make them for your shul. You can't make them anywhere else. They're two cheruvim, golden figurines, whatever it is, wings. Commentaries say that there's a face of a boy, a face of a girl, and they're tucked away. But if God has such an aversion to any representation, godly representation, or even a mistaken God representation, how come even now, like you go to a Jewish house, we don't have those pictures of the sun. You know, those people have the decoration with this picture of a sun in the middle, like a smiling face kind of thing. You see it, people have those decorations, right? And Jewish people never have statues, even in the garden. But most people, right? We have such an aversion to have any image. Then you should even paintings for a while was a very taboo subject, up until the 1800s. Jews didn't really own paintings of people, maybe of landscapes, but of people, because it was a whole thing about having an image. So one of the commentaries asked the question: how could it be that in the Holy of Holies, in the holiest place, God had by His command the cherubim? So Nachmanides comes up with a very interesting. I think it's Nachmanides. The Ramban comes up with a very interesting answer. He says the people that left. You have to understand the people that lived in that time. There was no such thing as an invisible God. It was such a radical, crazy idea that even the Jewish people believed in God, but the idea that no physical representation at all, they just couldn't. It didn't sit well with them. So as a compromise, or as a okay, I'll deal with your human weakness, because they were so. You realize the whole world was like that. God says, you want an image? We'll take an image. We'll throw it there in the corner. We'll put it in the shed. You happy now? It's there. Now, can we move on now? But He says, really, Judaism, the whole idea was to move forward. This goes into the whole thing of, will there be sacrifices when Mashiach comes? There are some opinions say no. Animal sacrifices was something only because that was the way of the past. When Mashiach comes, it's not going to happen. The other rabbis just say, you're talking nonsense. You could say that the only reason why the cherubim are there is because of Avodah Zarah. I mean, there's some opinions that blast it, but the reason why I brought it up was for us. It's hard to understand why you would need confirmation of God, the same God who fed you miraculous bread in the morning. But you see over here, he's saying that they needed some kind of eyewitness confirmation that the land is good. So Moshe said, "You want it? Fine." If you look at the commentary, Rashi brings this up. God says, "Well, all of a sudden now you don't believe me? You're going to see. This is going to be your path. You know, what is it? Stairway to heaven and highway to hell, right? You ever see that one? You ever notice how the heaven there's a stairway, but the hell there's a highway?
It's actually a slide.
It shoots and ladders, right? It just tells you where there's more traffic, right? So here. So here's where this happens. So what happens? The Rebbe continues something very, very, very interesting, and he says, "Where did they go wrong? Where did the spies go wrong? When did they turn from scouts into spies? Let's see if you guys can figure out the answer."
When they got there.
No, even before. We see before. Remember we said Moshe prays for them, prays for Yehoshua even before he leaves. The answer is, the answer is, look at text number 10. The Shlach of Yishaya Horowitz, Horowitz says, read carefully. The thought of submitting an evil report did not enter the minds yet. When they left, they were good guys, and they never dreamt for a second that they're going to come back and badmouth the land of Israel. At that time, they were pure and innocent of such thoughts. However, the potential for the sin was established. Always the potential for sin. They thought to themselves, I know Moshe didn't ask us for military information, but we'll bring it. We're gonna add to, what was the mistake? No one asked you. Just do what you're told. There's a famous precedent for this. In the Garden of Eden, what did Hashem command Adam and Chava? Or Adam, and Adam told Chava. He said, don't eat from the tree. The snake comes to Chava. So what's up? Okay, all good. Says, what's with the tree over there? What did Chava answer the snake? Let's see if you remember. Remember? So he said, God said, we can't eat from the tree, nor can we touch the tree. Because on the day we eat the tree, we're going to die, we're going to be punished. So the Medrash says that the snake pushed Chava onto the tree. She touched it, and lightning didn't strike. He said, God's full of baloney. He just doesn't want you to be like him, right? He knows the difference between good and bad. So if you touch the tree, nothing nothing happened to you, you can eat from the tree. Also, nothing will happen to you. What was Chava's mistake?
She picked the fruit.
No,
She listened to the snake.
No, but why did she listen to the snake? What was her initial mistake? What was the beginning of the mistake? What was the beginning of the end? When she added, we can't touch the tree. God never said he can't touch the tree.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
God said, don't eat from the tree. If God gives you clear, explicit instructions, there's no need for you to add your little salt to the soup. Like too many cooks spoil the broth, ruin the broth, spoil the broth. How does it? Right?
Either way.
Right? If Moshe says go and just bring me back the information, what's your job? Your job is to come back, and we said over here, in the previous slide, what they asked was just to come back and confirm the land is flowing milk and honey. I don't need you to tell me how to attack. I don't need you to tell me. Just tell me exactly. So what was the beginning of the end? The beginning of the end was where they decided to add there. So here we get into an interesting idea in Jewish law in general, but you can apply it. If I ask you to do something for me and you're my representative, what's your job? Your job is to do what I ask you to, not to make it better or to. I think the door needs oil. Not to add. Your job is to do exactly. Now, if I'm me and I don't know something and you see something that it can really benefit me, it's great. But if Moshe tells you to do something and Moshe is representing the boss, there's nothing for you to add. Your job, hey Stanley.
Hello.
Your job is to do exactly. Your job is to do exactly what you're asked to do. When you start saying what I say, let me give you an example. When you're learning the Talmud and something doesn't make sense, something in the Torah, what should be our attitude? What should be our approach?
You should stay open-minded and continue to research to figure out why it doesn't make sense.
So the right approach is, let me keep trying to understand it. The wrong approach is, that's stupid. That's wrong. Why? Because you're putting yourself, if you don't know something is good, then you investigate. But if you know something is good, then your job is to just, sort of speak, go with the flow. So the beginning of the end is when the scouts, this is what Moshe picks up. When he told Moshe, yeah, we're going to go back and confirm. Well, we also, maybe we'll come back and tell you, what the best restaurants are and, what's the best way of attack. And that's when Moshe starts praying for Yeshua. It's not for sure bad, but it has the potential for being bad. If Moshe knew it was for sure going to be bad, he would have stopped them, obviously. But because they were no longer scouting, because now they're turning into spies, and what attribute is Moshe known for? Moshe is known for truth. Moshe was, who's known for peace? Aaron, right?
Right. Yeah.
How come Moshe is not known for peace? Because Moshe is known for truth, and peace is not truth. Because peace means you gotta bend the truth a little bit, right? In order to make peace, truth is right. Truth is a rigid pillar, which doesn't bend for anybody, right? So, for example, I always love to quote this commercial for Geico I once saw. It says, "Can Geico save you 15% on car insurance?" Was honest Abe Lincoln honest? And then goes to a grainy image. It says, "Abe, does this dress make you look fat?" Yes. Right? Yeah, you told the truth, but
You're gonna suffer the consequences.
Yeah, exactly, right? Aaron was peace. Aaron would go to somebody and say, really, they want to, they just said it out of anger, they really love you. Aaron never did that, right? Aaron did know that, they really love each other, right? He fibbed a little bit in order to make shalom, and you're allowed to. We find this, even God doesn't disclose the complete truth in order to make shalom. Right? We know when the angel says that Sarah's going to have a baby, right? And Sarah says, "I can't have a baby. I'm old and my husband's old." And God goes to Avram and says, "How come she said, I'm old and I can't have a baby?" God left out the part where she said her husband's old. Why? Because for shalom bayis, for harmony between husband and wife, for harmony between shalom, if husband and wife, you're allowed to fib a little bit, right? Or not say all the details. Moshe is truth. This is straight on. So if you want, the scout is to deliver the facts, just the facts, man. A spy is all about lying, right?
Just the facts.
Right? A spy is all about lying.
Yes.
He says his name is one thing, but really his name is Eli Cohen, right? Whatever it is. I could go back to Iran, all these things that happened. I think the people in Iran knew who they're walking around with Am Yisrael. Chai. No, these guys obviously weren't doing that. So the second they changed, the second they became something else, now you're not connected to your sender. You're not a representative anymore, right? And this we find in halacha, by the way. We find in halacha. They did the 3 stages. They started out good. They developed the council because they chose to act in their own input, and then later, once you start down the slippery slope of what I think. Well, let's take a dramatic example here, right? You think the Germans woke up one day and said, "Let's kill everybody who's different than us"?
No.
Obviously not. So how did he get to that?
Somebody said, "Did you ever think?"
No, I'm saying, but really, think about it. How do you get to that? No, the problem is in schools we learn about the Holocaust. That this is the way we learned. That in 1933. They elected the Nazis, and then they passed laws against the Jews, and they put the Jews in camp, and they killed the Jews, the blacks, the Greys, the Gypsies, and everything else. And how did they get to that? You think society, it doesn't work that way. So if it does, I started watching once a documentary on PBS on the Holocaust. So U.S. and the Holocaust. You guys watch it?
I have it recorded, but I haven't read the whole thing.
It's a show.
It's
a series. So one of the first shows I didn't watch the first one, or part of it. It says interesting that in the 1880s, the U.S. was doing this whole thing of who can come into the United States. The eugenics, I think it's called eugenics or something. Eugenics. I think it's eugenics. I think it's called. Yeah. So the whole thing about if you're good genes, and the Nazis built on that. That means it didn't just happen. It started out like when you're drawing a line, right? And if it's not right, and you're trying to make it straight. So if it's slightly crooked, when do you know? When are you going to realize? Over here. I mean, in the beginning, right, when it's joined up, you don't realize it's slightly crooked. Only you draw the line, you compare it to the other one, you're like, huh. But where did you go wrong? In the beginning, right? That's how you end up so bad. So this is the same thing. So when a person decides that, this is one of the reasons why, by the way, the Torah has in the 10 Commandments, "Thou shalt not steal all these things." You might think it's so stupid. I would never do that. Really? You sure? Because it's happened a lot in society where people they explained it away. It's okay because it's okay to separate people. We're just going to put them in a little neighborhood. I don't want them to be too close. Let's go put them in a camp. I just can't. It's just one thing leads to another. One thing leads to another. So your job as a representative is to represent the sender. So let's say, for example, I send a guy to go buy 10 red peppers, and he buys 10 green peppers. So I ask you, right? Does he do? So he made the mistake because I gave him explicit instructions.
Did you write it down?
Well, let's say, for example, I ask you, right? Or let's say a guy is an investment banker, and I ask him, I call my guy, deposit $10,000 in this fund, and he says, no, I think better to deposit the $10,000 in a different fund.
Without telling you.
Well, obviously without telling him, and then he loses money. So according to Allah, I can take him to court, and he has to pay me the $10,000 because your job is to represent me. Not to, I didn't. It's one thing if I told you take the $10,000 and invest as you see fit. But if you're my representative, and you're doing something different, even if you thought to my benefit, I didn't ask you. Your job is to represent me, right? So and why? Because once you decide to input your own opinion, you're no longer my representative. Once Moshe asked them to be a scout, once they decided to be once they decided to be a spy, they broke off from Moshe. They're not representatives of Moshe anymore. You want to say something?
No. It said 180 calories. I wanted to see how much I had to eat to get 180 calories.
That's what.
It just jumped out at me.
Okay. So it said this is and this is why according to halacha.
1 ounce.
And this is why, according to halacha, it says a minor. It says according to halacha, a minor can be, or a person who's mentally unstable can be a representative. Why? Because the idea is the person is like you. A minor is not like you. So only those who are just like the center are fit for agency. And this was the problem, as the Rebbe explains in the Sikha. He says Moshe is about truth. So when they decided to become a spy, they weren't like Moshe anymore. So what? So if some guy sends you, big deal. But when Moshe sends you, that makes. I mean, you're going with the power of you represent. So you're not allowed to hit anybody. Or you shouldn't hit anybody, right? But it's worse when you hit a police officer. Why is it worse than hitting a police officer? He's not godly.
He represents all that's good.
Because he represents the law.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's what he represents. Right? So when a police officer comes, it's a police officer is 5'2". It's okay to abuse that police officer. A guy who's 6'6", then no. No, because it's not the size of the person, it's what he represents. So when Moshe sends you on a mission, you're not just going. It's not just happens to be some guy sent you. You're going with the power of Moshe. So now, as it is going on the way, and the job is hard enough. But when you have the power of Moshe to protect you, and Moshe's influence and Moshe's blessing, then it's good. But when a person cuts off from Moshe, now they're on their own in a big scary world. Now it gets a little bit scarier. So even though like the Shlach, going back to the Shlach, even though in the beginning they never imagined that they were going to do all this bad, because they started getting corrupted. Let's look at any alcoholic, any drug addict, any gambling addict. You think these guys who gambled away their house, or whatever it is, you think the first time they went to the casino and says, just gamble your house now. Why are you waiting 5 years? Do it now. So they go, you crazy? I will never do such a thing. Right? The guy who's an alcoholic, he be taking that shot. Just go and, of course not.
He's handing out the shots.
I know. Right? He's not. He's an amateur compared to
Michael J.
Yeah.
J is the professional.
Yeah. By the way, there was a guy who was here in Shavuos. So someone over to me and said, one guy, man, he was really pushing hard the alcohol, man. Didn't know. It was someone new. I don't remember who it was. Anyway, so the beginning, when you look up any of these alcoholics, or anyone who's stuck in
Downward spiral.
no, he's at the bottom. Look at someone who's at the bottom, right?
Okay.
What about none of them? If you would have asked them 3 years before, are you going to end up that way? They'll all say, no way, can't be. I would never do it. It's just a small drink. It's just a small bet. It's just it, right? That's why they call marijuana the gateway drug, right? It's just. But this is the take-home lesson. Why we have to be very vigilant in what we listen to, what we watch, and what activities we do. Because how does the Yetzer Hara work? Let's go back to Nazi Germany. The Yetzer Hara didn't one day go and tell the Germans, go wipe out. If Hitler would have got up in 1925 and said, all right, guys, or 1933, all right, even in 33, all right, guys, we're going to take all the Jews and put them in chimneys. So would say, no way. Even the ones that hated Jews, no way. But you see how it progressed. The way the Yetzer Hara goes is it wears you down. It means there's doing the right thing because it's the right thing, because God commanded you, and there's doing the right thing because you feel like it. What's the difference? That you're both doing the right thing, right? Or abstaining from doing something wrong. What's the difference between not stealing because it's wrong and not stealing because the cop's watching? What's the difference?
There is a difference.
There isn't a difference? Yeah, the practical application at the end is, you didn't steal. But the difference is, what happens when the cop is not watching? So in the beginning, the Yetzer Hara goes and tells you, do the mitzvah, 100% do the mitzvah. Or don't steal. But not because God said. Do it because it makes you feel good. Right? The previous, this is what it says in Gemara. And the previous Rebbe writes this continues this in text 15. He says the Yetzer Hara. He said today it says today this, and today and tomorrow says this. And even though in the beginning you would never think, just like the scouts or the spies, at the beginning, if you would have asked them on the day they left, listen guys, do you plan to bring back a bad report about Israel? They would say, of course not. No way. Can't be. We love it. We love it, and Israel, and our plan is to go there. But what happens? Because the Yetzer Hara wore them down. Meaning, it started, grinded them down. First put your own input. This is what God says, and what I say. Right? You also have an opinion. You're an intellectual, and then one thing leads to another. Like the Shlach says, it says, even if the first time we succumb, the thought of idol worship never enters our mind, since we're too pious for that. Nevertheless, consider it as if he did, since it's eventually, if you don't put on the brakes. And the previous Rebbe writes, it's a long text, but it's worth reading. He says, our animal soul doesn't tempt us. Let's say a guy, has the curly payas and the hat and the long black coat. Doesn't go to him and say, eat chazer, eat pig. Doesn't say that. Because he knows the person's not going to listen. No way. Right? So it says, first it cools you off. Don't do the mitzvah with such excitement because God said. He says, you want to eat? No problem. Keep a kosher diet, but do it because it's healthy. Right? So people have this idea that kosher food is healthier. Someone told me it is. Maybe the meat. I once saw a guy in Roma, and I couldn't hold myself back. I said, what are you doing here? I have to be here. What are you doing here? Oh, kosher food's good. It's healthy. I'm like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I have a bridge to say, right? Yeah, you obviously never tasted babka, right? So but in the beginning it tells you, do it because it makes you feel good. Afterwards it says, listen, the way of the world is you have to act a certain way. Are you part of society? You want everyone to look down upon you, to shun you? So, and at this point, the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, doesn't distinguish anymore between what's permitted and what's forbidden. Then it says, go do something even against the Torah. And what happened? What happened is a person never exercised their muscle of self-control. Right? think about it. I mean, not actually science coming out that even one drink is bad for you, whatever. But you think if a person had French fries once a week, you think anything bad is going to happen to you, right?
It all depends.
I mean, saying a person puts
how many French fries?
exactly right. Someone said I have 1 cup of coffee a day. You ever see? I saw one of these souvenir shops. I only have 1 cup of coffee a day. Or don't talk to me until I finish my cup of coffee. Right? Someone puts one bet. That's not that's not the problem. The problem is the person never exercised self-control and never thought that. Am I doing something because it makes me feel good? Or do I feel it's right? Or am I doing something because it's the right thing to do? Because sometimes the right thing to do is uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels good, sometimes it doesn't. In our basic baseline approach, remember when the Jewish people stood at Sinai, just a few weeks from Shuas, the Jewish people stood at Sinai, they said, we will do, we will hear. What does that mean? Number one, we're going to do it whether we like it or not. And number two, we're going to try to incorporate it. We're going to try to like it. We're going to try to understand, feel good about it. But if the baseline for our behavior is it makes me feel good, then whoa, you're barking up a tree. You're going down a path of self-destruction. Because like he says in the we see factually it often happens in the middle of the first paragraph on the screen that one is suddenly astonished and wonders. The guy looks in the mirror and says, "How did I get here? How did I fall so low?" Says, how come no one said anything? All this happened because we never stopped to put the brakes on self-control, and this is the lesson. This is the lesson. We all have to put in place. We have to know, and you have to have a friend. Pirkei Avos says we need a friend, and we need a mentor. What's a friend? A friend, someone you could turn to advice and not feel judged. What's a mentor? A mentor is someone who you respect and who can go over to you and say, "No, you're better than this, and you need to improve." Because the Gemara says self-made fences are no fences at all, right? We learned from this parsha. In the beginning, they were good, but then they had their own input. Sometimes God wants your input, right? When you learn, you have to understand, but you have to also understand it's God's Torah. But sometimes God says, "I don't need your input." Like the prime example is by the splitting of the sea. Jewish people are like, "Oh, what should we do? Should we do this?" You know what God told them? Be quiet. I'm not asking you. Just be quiet. When I tell you to move, you move. It literally says that in the Torah.
When you jump,
Exactly. Hashem says, Hashem yolachem, Hashem will fight for you. Vatem tachrishin, you be quiet. The problem is understanding where our role is, right? When Warren Buffett is giving a talk on investing, and you get up and say, "I concur," everyone looks at you like you're an idiot. No one's asking you, right? When God says the land of Israel is good, and you say, "Nah, I concur," yeah. No one's that. But this is what the Yetzer Hara does. Yetzer Hara says, "Oh, but you're an important person. Lend your opinion." When it comes to mitzvahs, we just sometimes, even when you don't feel like it, you got to do it, right? You got to have that. I'm going to do it, but at the same time, you have to try to find that love for Torah mitzvahs. All right, key points, and then we'll go. The Darren spiral never starts with a blatant sin, with small shifts. Right? What's it called? A small white lie, right? We need to make our choices come from honesty and truth. It's a little mistake. Don't let's stop. All right. Moral failings and good people are rarely sudden catastrophes. Really, more often they're a culmination of slow leaks, gradual erosions. The initial puncture is an outright sin. Is really an outright sin, but rather a shift in methodology or intention that subtly departs from what's true and holy. When acting on behalf of a spiritual mentor, we benefit only if we represent the boss, right? We represent Moshe. The Yetzer Hara evil inclination really begins with temptations to terrible things. Instead, it blurs the line between permitted and forbidden. To prevent the slow leak from progressing, constant self-examination or objective third-party input is crucial. That's what we need. If you don't, I'm sure they have a wife, a husband, right, or a rabbi tells you you're bad. You know that the old Jewish joke. in the days of telegraph when it cost money. It says a Jewish community gets a telegraph. It says bad news, details to follow, right? So there's always something in your life will tell you, yeah, you're not good. Details to follow. At every decision point or approach, we must put our underlying motivation under scrutiny. And the question is, what does the Torah say? And it will end up with one last example: giving land away for peace in Israel. Good idea or bad idea? Wait, before you answer the question, on the surface, if let's say I told you that the Arabs would stop stop attacking Israel and give away land, it seems like a good idea, right? Right? It seems like a good idea, right?
But it's not.
It's not, because the Torah promises, number one, it doesn't work. Number two, God says it's not yours to give.
Yeah.
So while it might seem like a good idea at the time, our idea is to always go back to the objective chart of laws, of rules, and say, this is the objective. Like, murder is wrong. Yeah, can we agree? Murder is wrong. But what if it's a bad guy? No. What if the guy cut me off? I don't care. What if the guy's black, or the guy's Jewish, or the guy is Haitian, or I don't know. No, the Torah didn't say, you're not allowed to kill everybody, but that guy, yeah. No. God says, unless I say it's okay, you can't do it. So we all have to have fences in our life. That this is something we don't like sometimes, because sometimes you want to do it feels good. You have to have fences in our life, and we all have to revert back to the Torah. So what does the most objective opinion say? If he says it's okay, it's okay. Like eating bread. Is eating bread okay? Depends when.
It all depends on your health.
No, it's like it also depends when.
Well,
On Passover, you can't eat bread. Is bread bad? No. God said, today, bread's good. No, tomorrow, bread, no bread. Cracker. All right, guys. Have a good week.
Because, for example,